Nana Taylor sat across from the interview panel, a confident smile masking the anxiety bubbling in her chest. She had prepared for months. This was her moment. A new chapter in her career, a fresh start. But as the questions came, something felt off. You've had quite a few years of experience, but can you tell us why we should hire you for this role, Ms. Taylor? The lead interviewer, Robert, asked, his tone more challenging than she expected. Her fingers tightened around the edges of her resume. She could feel the eyes of the other two panel members boring into her. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Long. Well, She paused, trying to collect herself. I've led multiple high-level projects, overseen teams, and consistently delivered results under pressure. I believe my experience aligns perfectly with what you're looking for. Robert raised an eyebrow, glancing at the other two members before turning back to her. I'm not sure you understand. This is a senior-level position at a company like ours. We need someone with a vision, not just experience. Can you provide that? Nana's heart raced. She'd heard this kind of skepticism before. They were testing her. They had to be testing her. I have the vision. I know what this company needs to move forward. But what's more important is, I believe in the team I would lead. The strength of any organization lies in its people, and I'm confident I can bring out the best in them, she replied, trying to stay calm, though her hands betrayed her. With a slight tremor, Robert exchanged glances with the others again. Nana couldn't read their expressions, but she felt something was wrong. This wasn't the usual line of questioning for someone with her qualifications. Well, Robert said, finally leaning back in his chair. Thank you for your time, Ms. Taylor. We'll let you know. A thin smile stretched across his lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. As Nana left the building, she tried to shake off the feeling of unease. It was just nerves, she told herself. You've done well before. This is just another interview. But as the days went by, the rejection came. Not just any rejection, but one that felt personal. She'd received the dreaded email from their HR department. It was polite, professional, but it was also crystal clear. They weren't interested. She stared at the screen, a mix of disbelief and anger stirring inside her. She had been the perfect fit, had nailed the interview. What was the real reason? Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her husband, Lucas. Babe, let's talk tonight. I have something important to discuss. Her stomach twisted. She could sense the weight of his words before even reading them, but first she needed to get answers. Why had they rejected her? Why had she been made to feel like something was wrong with her when she had everything they asked for? The email had a contact, Robert's. With a deep breath, she typed out a quick message. Hi, Robert. I'd like some feedback on my interview. If possible, could you let me know what I could have done better? He responded almost immediately. Hi, Nana. Thanks for your inquiry. To be honest, we felt your answers didn't meet the level of vision we were looking for. A sinking feeling washed over her. There was no real explanation, no further elaboration. It was a polite brush-off, nothing more. But in that moment, she made a silent vow. She would find out why. And she would make them regret this decision if you're enjoying this story so far. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Leave a comment below with your thoughts. What do you think of Nana's interview experience? Stay tuned to find out what happens next. Nana's curiosity grew into something darker. As she researched Robert and the company further, it didn't take long to uncover something unsettling. There was something more behind her rejection. She stumbled across an old news article from the company's early days, detailing how Robert had started as a low-level employee and had worked his way up to the top. But there was something else, the name of a former employee she recognized. A name she hadn't thought about in years, Lucas Taylor. Her husband Lucas had once worked for this company, but why hadn't he ever mentioned it to her? Why had he kept it a secret? She sat down at her desk, pulling out old files. Lucas had always been secretive about his past, but never to this extent. She hadn't realized how much she didn't know about his time before they met. The more she looked, the more questions piled up. She began to connect the dots. Robert, Lucas, the company. She had known there were rumors of corruption in the industry, but this felt different. It felt personal. That night, Lucas came home late. She had to know. She couldn't stay in the dark any longer. I did some research today. Nana started as they sat down for dinner. She didn't wait for his response. Why didn't you ever tell me you used to work at Robert's company? Lucas froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. He lowered it slowly, setting it aside, his expression unreadable. I thought I'd told you that years ago, he said, voice tight. But Nana could tell he was lying. No, you didn't. Her voice was calm, but beneath it was the storm of betrayal. Tell me the truth, Lucas. What's going on here? For a long moment, Lucas just stared at her. Then, finally, his eyes met hers. Robert wasn't just my boss. He was the reason I left, he said quietly. What is Lucas hiding? What role does Robert play in this secret history? If you're feeling the suspense building, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with your friends. Don't forget to comment below with your theories. What do you think Lucas is hiding? You won't want to miss the next part of Nina's journey. Stay tuned. I'll stop here to give you a preview of how the structure will unfold with each part. The suspense and emotions will continue to build in every part, leaving viewers hooked until the very end. Let me know your thoughts. If you want to tweak anything or add more emotional depth in certain places, I'm happy to adjust. Nana couldn't believe what Lucas had just revealed. He had left the company because of Robert? What had happened between them? And why had he kept this from her for so long? Her mind was racing. Why didn't you tell me this before? Why now? She asked, her voice shaking slightly, despite her attempts to remain composed. Lucas took a deep breath, looking away. His gaze seemed distant, lost in the past. It wasn't easy for me to talk about. You have to understand, Nana. I wasn't just working for Robert. I was entangled in something bigger, something I couldn't escape. Nana's heart pounded. Entangled in something bigger? Her instincts screamed at her that this wasn't just about office politics. There was something darker lurking beneath the surface. Something that connected Robert, Lucas, and now her. Tell me everything, she demanded, her voice firm now, the urgency rising. What are you not telling me? What does Robert have to do with this? Lucas's hands trembled as he clasped them together on the table. He glanced at her, then looked down, his face contorting with something that looked almost like regret. There's so much you don't know. I was involved in a financial deal with Robert. It was supposed to be simple, just a business transaction. But it went wrong. Very wrong. Nina's stomach churned. She could already feel the weight of what he was about to say, but she needed to hear it. She had to know the truth. Robert? He was running a side business, a dark one. It wasn't just about the company's profits. He was skimming off the top, money laundering, insider trading, that kind of thing. I didn't know at first, but then I got pulled into it. Lucas's voice grew quieter as he spoke, almost like he was confessing a crime. Nana's mind was reeling. And you? I tried to back out. But you don't just walk away from people like Robert. He made it clear that if I left, if I exposed anything, he'd ruin me. He'd destroy everything. My career, my reputation. He had it all in his hands. Lucas looked at her, eyes full of shame. I had no choice, Nana. I stayed silent because I thought it was the only way to protect you, to protect us. But you left the company, Lucas, she said, the pieces starting to fit together, but not enough to form a clear picture. So why didn't you expose him then? Why stay silent? Why not go to the authorities? Lucas's face turned pale. He shook his head. Because I was too deep in it. The connections, the people involved. His voice trailed off, and he seemed to shrink in on himself. I couldn't risk it. I couldn't risk us losing everything. Nina felt her heart drop. So you chose to protect him? She asked, the bitterness in her voice sharp. You let him destroy lives, and you stayed quiet. Lucas opened. his mouth to respond, but no words came out. The guilt was written all over his face, and Nana could see it now. This wasn't just about a bad job experience. It was about a life-altering decision, one that had trapped him in a web of lies and fear. "Why didn't you ever tell me any of this?" Nana asked again, this time with more desperation in her voice. "We could have fought this together." He looked at her, regret flooding his features. "I didn't think you could handle it. I didn't think you'd want to be involved in something so dangerous." Nina stood up abruptly, her chair scraping across the floor. "I deserve to know, Lucas," she said, her voice cracking. "You kept this from me for years, and now Robert has rejected me from a job I was more than qualified for, and I can't shake the feeling that this is all connected. You've dragged me into something I never asked for." Nana stood up abruptly, her chair scraping across the floor. "I deserve to know, Lucas," she said, her voice cracking. "You kept this from me for years, and now Robert has rejected me from a job I was more than qualified for, and I can't shake the feeling that this is all connected. You've dragged me into something I never asked for." Her mind raced. Robert's rejection, the feeling of being looked down upon during the interview, it was no coincidence. Everything was part of a larger game, a game that she had unwittingly stepped into. But now, she was determined to get out of it. "You need to fix this. You need to fix everything," she said, her voice hard and unforgiving. "I'm not going to sit back and let Robert win. Not after everything you've told me." Lucas reached out for her, his hand trembling. "Nana, please, don't do this. It's too dangerous." But Nana was already beyond the point of no return. She was already making plans in her mind, working through the next steps. If Robert thought he could push her around, if he thought she'd just fade into the background and stay quiet, he was sorely mistaken. If you're feeling the tension building, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with your friends. Leave a comment below. What do you think Nana is going to do next? What's Lucas's true role in all this? You won't want to miss the next part of the story. The night felt colder than it should have. Nana paced the room, the weight of the revelation she'd just heard still pressing down on her chest. The walls seemed to close in on her, but she refused to let fear take hold. She wasn't going to back down. Not now. Lucas was still sitting at the table looking helpless. His eyes were wide, his face pale as he watched her move around. "Nana, please, don't do this. This isn't just about you or me anymore. This is bigger than both of us." "That's exactly the problem, Lucas." Her voice was low, controlled, but laced with venom. "It's too big. And I have been caught in the middle of it unknowingly for too long." She stopped pacing, standing in front of the window, her reflection in the glass staring back at her. She barely recognized herself anymore. This wasn't the woman who had walked into that interview with hope and ambition just days ago. This was someone else. Someone who had just uncovered the extent of a manipulative scheme that stretched far beyond corporate greed. Robert had played his cards well, but she wasn't going to be his pawn. "You don't understand, Nana." Lucas's voice cracked as he stood up, taking a hesitant step toward her. "Robert is not just some businessman. He's connected to people you don't want to mess with. Powerful people. Dangerous people. If we expose him now, it won't just destroy him. It'll destroy everyone who's ever been near him." Nina turned slowly, locking eyes with him. Her expression was one of quiet determination. "You think I care about that? I'm already in this mess, Lucas. You're telling me that I should just sit back and wait for them to destroy me too?" She shook her head, the anger bubbling up in her chest. "You should have told me everything from the start. I could have helped you. We could have done this together. But you chose silence. Now I'm the one who has to pick up the pieces." "You don't know what you're asking for," Lucas said, his voice trembling. "This is a fight that has no winners. Even if you go to the authorities, if you bring everything out into the light, you'll be targeted. I've seen it happen before. They'll make sure your career is over before it even starts." Nana didn't flinch. "So what? We just let them win? Let them silence us one by one until there's no one left to fight back? No, I will not let that happen." Her mind was racing now, the plan forming piece by piece. Robert might have thought that rejecting her from the interview had crushed her, but she was smarter than that. She was not some naive candidate he could brush aside. No, this was her opportunity. An opportunity to bring everything into the light. Then what's your plan? Lucas asked, his tone skeptical. How are you going to bring him down? You don't even know the full scope of what he's capable of. I will find out, she said, her voice unwavering. And I'm going to use every tool at my disposal, every connection, every piece of evidence. And I'm going to make sure Robert regrets ever underestimating me. She took a deep breath, standing, tall now. The fear was still there, but it was buried deep beneath the layers of resolve. This was the moment when she chose to take control of her life again. Tomorrow, I'm going to dig into Robert's past, into the company's finances. I'll find something, anything, that ties him to the illegal activities Lucas mentioned. I'll go to the media if I have to. I'll make this public, and I'll make sure it sticks. Lucas stared at her, as if seeing her for the first time. His eyes were wide, his mouth slightly agape. You're really going to do this, aren't you? Yes. She nodded. And if you want to be a part of this, then you better get on board. Otherwise, I'm doing this without you. I don't need you to protect me anymore. For a moment, there was silence. Lucas didn't say anything, and Nana could hear the sounds of her own heartbeat in her ears. But just as she was about to turn away, he spoke. You won't have to do it alone, he said quietly. I'll help you. The days that followed were a blur of strategy and sleepless nights. Nana was more focused than ever, her mind sharp as she pieced together the final steps of her plan. Robert had underestimated her, and now she was ready to show him the full extent of his mistake. She'd spent hours sifting through company financials, cross-referencing with anonymous whistleblower, tips and tracking down leads. Lucas had become an unexpected ally, though his reluctance was clear. He was afraid, but she could sense a growing respect for her determination. For the first time, it seemed like he truly understood what was at stake. By the time the weekend arrived, Nina felt ready. She had enough evidence to go public, enough to expose Robert and the empire of lies he had built. The sting of betrayal that had fueled her had morphed into something else now, a fire, an undeniable drive for justice. This was no longer just about her rejection from the job interview. It was about all the people he had trampled on to climb. To the top, all the lives he had ruined with his corporate deceit. I'm ready, she said quietly, looking up at Lucas as they sat in a dimly lit cafe booth. He was nervously tapping his fingers on the table, but his face had softened. Are you sure about this? Lucas asked, his voice barely a whisper. This could go south, Nana. You know that, right? I don't care, she replied, her voice steady. I'm done being scared. This ends now. They had agreed to meet with a journalist, a trusted one, someone who had a reputation for taking down the powerful with hard-hitting investigative stories. This was the moment that would either change everything or lead to disastrous consequences. But Nana knew she couldn't back down. Journalist, a woman named Samantha, had agreed to meet them at a hotel in the city, a neutral ground. Her reputation preceded her. She had a history of exposing corporate corruption and would be a valuable ally in bringing Robert's empire to the ground. Stay sharp, Nana warned Lucas as they approached the hotel lobby. We can't afford any mistakes. I'll do my part. He nodded, his expression a mix of anxiety and determination. As they entered the conference room, Samantha was already sitting at the table, her laptop open in front of her. She was in her early 40s, with sharp eyes and an air of confidence that matched her reputation. You have the information? Samantha asked, her tone businesslike but not unkind. Nina nodded. She opened her briefcase and slid a folder across the table. Inside was everything. The documents, the financial discrepancies, the secret email threads that proved Robert's involvement in the fraudulent activities. Samantha leaned in, her eyes scanning the files. This is solid, she said after a long pause. But you're sure you want to do this? Exposing Robert is only the beginning. You'll be putting yourself in the line of fire. I know the risks, Nana replied, her voice unwavering. But it has to be done. The room fell silent as Samantha continued to sift through the papers. Finally, she closed the folder and looked up at Nana. Her eyes locked onto hers. "You're making a powerful enemy," Samantha warned. "But I'll help you. We'll run this story." "Thank you," Nana said, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it, the moment she'd been waiting for. In just a few days, Robert's empire would come, crashing down, and she would be the one to bring it to the ground. The next week was a whirlwind. The story went live, and the world learned the truth about Robert Taylor, the man who had manipulated and destroyed lives for the sake of profit. The exposé was everywhere. News outlets were running the story nonstop, and the public outrage was immediate. But even as the media frenzy took hold, Nana knew the fight wasn't over. Robert wasn't going to take this lying down. In fact, he was already planning his next move. As expected, Robert's reaction was swift. He called her multiple times, each time trying to convince her that everything she had revealed was false. He even threatened legal action, claiming that the evidence was fabricated and that she was just a disgruntled former interviewee with a personal vendetta. But Nana had anticipated this. She had already covered her tracks. The evidence was airtight, and there was no way he could escape the truth now. She had become the very thing he feared most, a force he couldn't control. Then came the unexpected twist. Late one evening, as Nana was preparing for another round of interviews, Lucas called her. His voice was shaking, and for the first time, she could hear the fear in his words. "Nana, they've got him. Robert's been arrested." "What?" She froze, the phone almost slipping from her hand. "He's been arrested for embezzlement. They found the offshore accounts. They found everything." Nana could hardly believe it. Robert Taylor, the man who had made her life hell, was finally being held accountable. The system was working, and justice was within reach. But the story didn't end there. As the investigation continued, more and more people came forward. Whistleblowers, former employees, all with their own stories of how Robert had destroyed lives in the name of greed. The empire he had built was unraveling faster than he could control it. By the end of the month, Robert was behind bars, his reputation in ruins. The company was facing massive lawsuits, and shareholders were fleeing. The power had shifted, and Nana had done it. She had won. As for her, the job interview that had once seemed like the end of everything now felt like the beginning. She was no longer the woman who had been rejected, the woman whose confidence had been shattered. She was a fighter, a survivor, and she had proven that no one could ever underestimate her again. She looked out the window, the city skyline stretching before her. A new chapter had begun. If you've been with Nana through every twist and turn, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more emotional thrillers, and share this story with someone who loves a good revenge tale. And of course, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Did you think Nana was going to make it, or did you think she'd be taken down?